all of a sudden, out comes the Big Show, and he marches down to the ring, and the Shield head him off. But all of a sudden, out comes Rhodes Dynasty, and the Usos run down to take out the Shield, and Show runs in to the ring. What could be the worst that happens to me? Nothing. They're gonna arrest him? Because he has friends that will pay his bail. Show says his lawsuit will cost Triple H millions of dollars and doesn't care if he even bankrupts Triple H's throne. He has nothing to lose. Orton hits Show in the head with the championship as Triple H and Stephanie look on, and in order to finish Show off, Show punches Orton, and Triple H climbs onto the apron and takes his jacket off, but Stephanie holds him back. Triple H moves toward the ring, but look, he has to back off when Show's music plays as Raw goes off the air. He backs off. Really setting up for, it could be an all-new feud between Big Show and Orton, but I'm really hoping for the Big Show and Triple H. Well, that was really it for our WWE report. It was our Hell in a Cell Aftermath. We talked about Sandow's cash-in, and we also talked about Show knocking out Orton. And is it going to set up a new feud? Well, we'll see later on. But let's just talk about the indie scene real quick. Let's talk about the TNA World Heavyweight Championship bracket. As you know, TNA is setting up for the vacant TNA World Heavyweight Championship. And so far, the tournament bracket has Jeff Hardy versus Chris Sabin, Bobby Roode versus James Storm, Kurt Angle versus Austin Aries, and Mangus versus Samoa Joe. Stipulations for the matches will be determined by Spin the Wheel of Dixie. As we do know that, we do know one stipulation, and that is for Hardy versus Sabin is a Full Metal Mayhem match. Well, next we would just like to run a quick rundown of AJ Styles here. TNA champion AJ Styles will work for Wrestle One promotion in Japan later this month, and Styles will face Sia Sandana in a non-title match on November 16, 2013 in Tokyo. And the reason for the match that is a non-title is because Styles is defending the TNA title in AAA this weekend against Judas Messias. And that's obviously part of the storyline where AJ Styles walked out of TNA with the TNA Championship. Well, that's it for our indie report. Stay tuned because we've got some announcements and a quick edition of Ask WWN and some closing thoughts. Well, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, like I said, announcements and Ask WWN.
GLCW is back with Shenanigans Friday night, October 4th at 7:30 at Turner Hall in downtown Milwaukee with a special show to benefit the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. See Al Snow, Tommy Dreamer, Joseph Park, Robbie E., the Headbangers, Armando Estrada, ODB, and more, including a steel cage match, a ladders match, and a tables match. Don't miss it! Get your tickets online right now at blizzardbrawl.com, and we'll see you at Shenanigans on Friday, October 4th.
Well, welcome back after our quick little break here from our sponsors. We have some quick announcements we'd like to tell you. We have an all-new addition to WorldWrestlingNews.com that is coming soon. It is called Our Game Center. It is an exclusive feature, like I said, coming to WorldWrestlingNews.com. It's going to have exclusive videos from WWE 2K14, and multiple other games, really, that multiple of our viewers are interested in and like. It's just a fun little hub, sort you could say, or center, that is just dedicated to all that. And when we say exclusive videos or something like that, we're not talking about promos or different things like ads for the game. No, we're talking about actual matches, actual scenes. But we do want to warn you that this section will not be rated GPG. It will contain language. It may contain mild language, and some of it may contain adult language as well. In fact, some of it really shouldn't be viewed by kids, as we'll see later on, because some of the games shouldn't be played by kids. But, like I said, stay tuned to WorldWrestlingNews.com and follow us on Twitter at WWrestlingNews for further updates on the Game Center. Well, it's time for our closing segment for this week's edition of The Score. This is obviously a question and answer. You remember, if you have any questions, please send them via email at askwwn@worldwrestlingnews.com. And also, you can now tweet us your questions using our official hashtag AskWWN to our Twitter account at WWrestlingNews. And now, it's time for our Ask WWN. With Kane unmasking and looking better than ever, what are the current ideas or potential feuds for him? Is what this reader asks. Well, the booking direction of Kane is one that was significantly changed from last week to this week. His unmasking was seen as something that is part of the 2014 release of See No Evil 2, as he doesn't wear a mask in the film. Now, whether or not they leave him unmasked throughout the release of the film remains to be seen, but that was the initial word at Raw. As for his character direction, the storyline is he was given to Stephanie McMahon to help her to do what's best for business. I'm told this was done to explain why he's not going after the Wyatt family and presumably turning heel. I talked more about this on Twitter recently, about Kane and stuff, and really check us out there on Twitter, because those tweets are still there, just like we'll possibly post to this question and answer on our homepage of WorldWrestlingNews.com, because really it's a very good question that is being asked a lot, especially this past week. Our next question: what are your feelings on WWE's disappointment with the performance of this year's SummerSlam? Well, one thing was very clear in Thursday's conference call, with investors, that Vince and the company were not pleased about SummerSlam doing 296,000 buys in August. The show is seen as one of the most important shows they do all year long, besides WrestleMania, and the number was a big pullback from 358,000 buys they did in 2012. Vince McMahon explained that fans didn't buy the attraction, which has resulted in widespread IWC speculation. And, it seems everyone wants to find one worker to shoulder the blame. And, I have heard nothing, I've heard actually everything, from that'll show John Cena fans to, well, that's it for Daniel Bryan. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of that. And, these knee-jerk reactions are incorrect. Trust me, if WWE could pinpoint the blame on one particular worker, they would take the appropriate action with that particular worker. I take Vince's comment that fans didn't buy the attraction at the face value. Pay-per-view events are attraction-driven, and WWE swung and missed with SummerSlam. They did. Our next question: with Paul Heyman being written off television as a result of CM Punk beating him, what's next for Ryback? Well, Ryback vs. CM Punk was blown off on Raw, Monday Night Raw, when Punk made Ryback tap out in the street fight. This doesn't mean Ryback is off television, as he went over Kofi Kingston on this week's episode of Main Event. Where they go from there remains to be seen, but I hope they pull the reins back and give Ryback some time in the mid-card. Every time WWE has tried to force him to the main event, they've failed. There's nothing wrong with building him back up through the mid-card, and it's where he should have been working all along. Well, our last question: you said last week that Vince McMahon doesn't see talent outside of WWE as valuable. What about guys like Sting? I get questions like this all the time, and I actually answered a similar one last week's edition of the Score. And a lot of people see Sting as the exception. But this is one of the things that has kept Sting out of WWE. Sting doesn't completely trust Vince McMahon with his character, and he very well remembers The Rock looking at Booker T when he first came to WWE after a successful career in WCW and asking him who he was. Now, obviously, Booker overcame that because he's extremely talented and went on to have success in WWE, but these are the things that have kept the deal from happening. Sting is a smart guy and understands the WWE mentally. People criticize him for not going to WWE, but he's worked the last decade under an awesome deal. He gets to work minimal dates at optimal pay. I love to see Sting come to WWE and work at WrestleMania main event, but he hasn't done bad for himself by refusing to risk the McMahon machine at this stage of his career. He has done very well for himself in TNA. Now, I'm not going to bury TNA here. He has done well in TNA, and I praise TNA for actually giving Sting that. That was excellent. Sting has looked good for pretty much an entire decade in TNA wrestling. No, it's actually very smart of Sting to stay there and to never sign with WWE. But do we all want to see Sting go to WWE someday? Yes. Of course we do. That's the inner fan that we are. That's the WWE fan we are. That's the Sting fan that we are. But is it a smart move for Sting to do? And that's really the question that really is the forefront of this. Well, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of The Score. I hope you enjoyed it. We went through quite a bit here, and a lot of it we spent on our WWE report, and we always seem to go overtime on that. But, I think it was well worth it, because we went through so much there, especially Hell in a Cell. Did you like it, or you didn't? It was still great to just go through here, and I appreciate all of our listeners, really. We are working to have an interactive show, and really that's what the Score is going to be about. So stay tuned to future episodes as well, as they are all very exciting. And remember to check out WorldWrestlingNews.com every single day. But for now, I am your host, Michael Burgess, signing off.